right, we are live. All right, everybody. Hello, it's 4 o'clock. It's Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific. Chris is here with us, a broker in Southern California. So I'm going to let Chris do his own introduction. Before, Chris, I hand you the mic. Anybody that's here new, we don't know you're here unless you make a comment in the comments. And so if you do, let us know, your name and where you're from. And please feel free to join the conversation. This is going to be a lot more fun for Chris and I when you participate and ask questions or make comments, good, bad, or ugly. All right, Chris, your turn. Intro.
Thank you, Tanya. Okay, so this is my 43rd year in the industry. So every few years, I think I'd say I've seen everything, and then something else happens, and I realize I haven't seen everything. Right. So what we're experiencing now is obviously a radical change from what we've done for our entire careers. A little bit about myself. Again, I've been licensed for 43 years. I've done residential, commercial, industrial, land development, built spec homes, just about everything in the industry that you can do, I've done. I've got several hats I wear. I'm the broker owner of Coldwell Banker Village Properties in northern San Diego County. Also have a property management company and an escrow company.
Awesome.
And then in my spare time, I volunteer. This is my 6th and final year on the board of directors for the North San Diego County Association of Realtors. I am the board chair for CRMLS, which is the largest MLS in the country. And then as my role there, I'm also the board chair for it's an industry initiative called RE Distribute. You may not have heard about.
I haven't.
What it is for years, real estate data is extremely valuable. What we do as an industry creates a lot of data and a lot of information for a lot of entities. And most of that just gets sold off in the gray market. People use it and compile it together. And as an industry, we don't get anything back from that.
Right.
So CRMLS and Bright, the 2 largest MLSs in the country, initially started this. And now we're up to about 50% of the MLSs in the country. The plan is to aggregate all of the data nationwide and then license it properly to the GSEs, to appraisers, to
Awesome.
Home Depot, Lowe's, right? And provide an accurate, up-to-date inventory and data so that we can then return that money, whatever we sell it for, we can return it back to the MLSs and the brokers.
Nice.
Right?
Very cool.
So far,
cool.
companies like Zillow making millions and millions of dollars off of our data, and we get nothing for it.
Yeah.
So we thought the time was ready to end that. So that's a venture that was started this year. It's got a lot of momentum, and looking forward to that. Hopefully getting to about 90% of the U.S. next year.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's very cool. All right. So I want to say hello. We got Kelly. We've got Marcello. Anybody? And I know I'm just going to interrupt for just a second. When I put this layout out this way, I can see comments from all platforms. But Chris, your name isn't there. So again, that's why I say there's always a blooper, right?
Okay.
But if I do this layout, your name shows up. However, I'm not sure I can see comments from all different platforms. So I'm going to, every once in a while, I don't want anybody to feel seasick. I'm just going to do this so I can check.
Okay.
However, this one, obviously, I'd like that your name is here for everybody to see. So one of the things that prompted me, because I've been going live now for a year and a half, and typically I interview, realtors, lenders, brokers, roofers, attorneys, any business owner, because coaching business owners is not all that different. And it's always been called What's Your Story Business Edition. However, we've had a lot of huge changes in the real estate industry the last few months. And so I'm making it now real estate related for the most part. If there's a business question, please feel free to ask. So update everybody what's happening with NAR in a nutshell, and then what are we going to do about it? Like how are we going to calm our agents down?
Well, let's start with the end. There will be tremendous opportunity. I think for the right agents who take this seriously, who prepare properly, that whatever result comes from this, there'll be great opportunity for those agents.
Yeah.
There will be agents who just won't make it. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. But so let's go back. For years, the industry, NAR, has had rules in place that require a listing agent to put their listing in the MLS and offer a unilateral or blanket offer of compensation.
Correct.
And that offer of compensation is the same to whoever brings the buyer, whether it's the agent's first transaction, they've never been trained right out of real estate school, or the most experienced professional agent, they're offered the same thing. These lawsuits are about that being anti-competitive. And in my opinion, it is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the essence of it. Those rules also precluded buyers from ever knowing how much their agent was being paid or had any ability to negotiate that.
Right.
If you think about it, that's not right either.
Right.
There's no other profession that I know of. If I go to my attorney, my brother-in-law's an attorney, he charges $875 an hour.
Wow.
He's really good at what he does, his specialty.
Yeah.
But before I hire him, I know what he charges. I have the ability to try and negotiate that. And then I sign a contract with him. My accountant, every other profession you go to has that. But in real estate, the rules prohibited the buyer from even seeing that or using the offer to negotiate that. That's the anti-competitive activities are taking place. And that's what the lawsuit is about.
Yeah.
So, what they're asking for is they want transparency. They want the buyer to be able to negotiate with their agent how much they're going to pay their agent. And there's really nothing wrong with that.
Nope. I agree.
The next level with that, unfortunately, is what people are kind of missing is that the Department of Justice has had their hand in this from the beginning. Right? Department of Justice is helping the settlement agreements right now. They're involved in the writing of settlement agreements to the extent that what they're looking for is compensation to be removed from the MLS completely. They don't want sellers paying the buyer's broker at all.
Right.
Right.
And that's where I'm going to interrupt for a second, where a lot of agents are anxious.
Yes.
Is that last sentence you just said?
And it is. And that's where I think, my opinion now, the DOJ is missing the point here. I understand that the first lawsuit that just happened and the verdict came in was a seller side lawsuit. That seller said, why am I as a seller paying the buyer's broker, who in essence is my adversary? They're negotiating against me. I shouldn't be paying their fee, right? And there's some logic to that.
There's logic to that.
But from a marketing standpoint, why should the seller be precluded from doing that? If an offer comes in and the buyer's agent or the buyer asks for the seller to pay that fee, the seller should be able to do that if they choose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if a seller is told today, you're no longer required to pay the buyer's broker. However, from a marketing perspective, think about it. You don't want to miss any buyers out there today. So if you have a buyer that loves your property, but doesn't have enough money for a down payment and to pay their own broker, you might miss that buyer as an opportunity.
Correct.
So you might want to, again, from a marketing perspective, offer compensation to the broker just so that buyer's able to buy your property.
Right.
And to me, that seems logical. The next step of precluding that completely, I just don't get.
Right.
But for now,
well, yeah. I mean, do you want to list your house or sell your house?
Exactly. And in this, a year ago, 2 years ago, when the market was crazy, if an offer came in and that said, I want you to pay my buyer's broker, the seller would say, heck no, I've got 40 offers behind you that I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
That's not the market that we're in today. Right? Sellers today most sellers in our marketplace in particular, like I'm not getting calls, I'm not getting showings. I'm welcoming an offer and I'll be glad to pay a commission.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it changes and became a buyer's market, right? So we're not there yet. However, it could. And so how are you calming down your agents? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has agents. I coach them. They're in your brokerage. How are you calming down the ones that are maybe going a little bit more sideways than we had anticipated that they would? Although I think I anticipated it. I'm sure you did too.
Yeah. I mean, I've been, it's weird. It seems like this is all I've been talking about for 3 years, virtually.
Yeah.
I mean, be prepared, buyer representation agreements. I have been training my guys for probably close to a year now, introducing it slowly, talking about the new agreements, the concept, how it's going to work, and much more intensely the last 2 months where I have group sessions, small groups or one-on-ones, and we discuss the benefits of a buyer representation agreement,
Right.
right? There's 8 states right now in the country where you don't get paid by law unless you have a buyer representation agreement. Washington is going to be that way come January 1st. It'll be the
Yep.
9th state.
Yep.
California considered that last year. At CAR, it was hotly debated if we were going to try and introduce legislation that would require it in California as well.
Yep.
Problem with that is once you let them in the door, what else are they going to try and regulate, right?
Yeah.
So the decision was made not to do that. However, that's going to put us behind the curve, and because a lot of agents are fearful that if I require my buyer to sign that representation agreement and nobody else does, I'll lose them as a buyer.
Correct.
So if everybody's in the same playing field, level playing field, then it wouldn't be a problem. And so that's the goal.
Right.
But until then, there are advantages, several advantages to having a buyer representation agreement. Number one is other professionals do it. If we want to elevate the image of our profession, we need to be like other professions and have a contract for services.
Right. Yep.
Number two is even if it's non-exclusive, it can emotionally tie your buyer to you, right? They sign a contract, and yes, it's cancelable in that case, but they still
Sure.
signed a contract with you.
Right.
But really, if you're a good agent, why are you comfortable having the listing agent determine what your fee is going to be? Right? Because
Yeah.
the agreement the seller signs with the listing agent is I'll pay X% and split that with you. But this listing agent's determining that. I don't want the listing agent determining my fee. That should be between me and my buyer.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to interrupt. So Susan is in Virginia. Same thing. You don't get paid unless you have a signed buyer broker agreement. It's so very easy to get it signed.
It should be that way everywhere.
Right.
It is. It's just in California, and in particular Southern California, we're just not used to that. Most brokers, and I will tell you again, this is my 43rd year, I've never signed a buyer broker agreement. But most of my business, 99% of my individual business, is representing sellers anyway.
Right.
But it's the same concept, right? As a listing agent, we've had to articulate our value to our sellers forever. Buyers agents are going to just have to do the same thing now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and a lot of the clients that I coach, they're a little bit ahead of the curve because that's one of the first things we do when they start coaching with me is knowing their superpowers and, and how to articulate their superpowers. It's not easy. Most humans on earth can very easily articulate their kryptonite. Right. And for a human to sit up straight and confidently explain their superpowers, that's practice for a lot of people.
Well, and the other part of that is, as an industry, we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot here in that our job is to make it easy, the transaction easy for our buyers and sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, in general, you're not going to call them every day and say, here's the 27 things I did for you today, right? Their expectation is just do it, right? I just want to get it done and close my escrow. But if we don't make that phone call or email or follow up or some type of communication of here's all I'm doing for you, it's easy for them to not value what it is that we do because they don't know what we do.
Right. Exactly. And the changes are happening. I have a question, but I'm going to back it up for a minute. I know I coach a gal in Orlando who has seen listings now. The MLS hasn't caught up, so it doesn't say 0. It says $1 because they have to put a dollar amount. And then I have a gal in Northern California who has now seen 2 homes that are at $1. So it's maybe feels like we're moving the Titanic with this, but it is moving. There are listings there in 2 different states that I know of that say $1.
Well, actually, NAR came out recently and changed their interpretation, right? Their interpretation initially was you had to put a number in that field, some amount in that commission field. They've come out now and said in the last 2 months that 0 can be that number.
Right.
So it truly can be 0 compensation to the
yes.
broker.
Yes. It's just you're not able to put 0 in it yet. The MLS hasn't changed their algorithm or their graphics.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was horrible.
Oh, it's okay. It's not horrible. It's live.
It's live. Oops. Just like my lighting. This was not that bad an hour ago. My apologies.
Yeah. So Susan, in the comments, I appreciate you being here, Susan. Have you seen any compensation being at 0 or $1 or anything like that in Virginia? I'm curious. So, Chris, I have a question. When this first happened, when the lawsuit first got quote settled, and I know they're appealing, there was a lot of talk. It was all over the news. It was all over the internet. I saw it on Instagram, saw it on LinkedIn. And then the last 2 weeks, it's been totally silent.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, what you're seeing is you're seeing attorneys with copycat lawsuits trolling for plaintiffs all throughout the 50 states right now. And there really isn't an urgency because there aren't hearings on this until March or so. I mean, this is going to drag on for a little bit.
Okay.
Part of my frustration, and this is me personally, I'm not speaking on behalf of any board or anything right now. Part of my frustration is I believe that the plaintiffs in some cases are right. Our rules have allowed commissions to stay high artificially. The market hasn't been a driving force. And I know I've heard 1,000 reasons why it does, but I don't believe that. And as an industry, the longer this drags on and there isn't a global settlement of some kind, and we can move on from this, an acknowledgement, a recognition, okay, we understand, we're going to change our policies going forward. If we get to that point, we can get past this. But if this truly drags on for years and there's hundreds more copycat lawsuits,
Yep.
the industry's name's going to be dragged through the mud the entire time. You're going to have articles in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and it's just going to be hammering the industry on overcharging our clients.
Correct.
That's not good for us, right? We need to settle up. It's going to be painful to try and settle this thing up if it's possible, but I think it needs to be done. So that's why there's no rush right now. I know. I can turn this off. Let's just do this again and turn it completely off. Okay. There's lawsuits popping up every couple of days, but kind of the initial splash is worn off. There was one in Texas that actually was suing MLSs, associations, and individual agents, teams, right? There's one that just popped up in Georgia, and they're going to be
I just heard the Georgia one. Yep.
Yeah, and they're going to be popping up left and right. But the initial splash, I think the newsworthy headlines are okay, been there, done that, and let's wait till the next shoe drops. Yeah. So I think that's what's happening.
And they are appealing, right? So there's some quietness around that. I'm not sure. I really don't know.
You know, it's interesting. People say that, and NAR says that all the time. It's not like NAR can just appeal, right? The plaintiffs won that case. They won with damages. They won $5.5 billion. If the defendants were just allowed to appeal and drag this on for years, theoretically, they could all just spend their money and go bankrupt, and then the plaintiffs get nothing.
Right.
In order to do this appeal, the defendants have to put up a bond. And in general, that bond has to be usually the amount of the damages. Well, NAR doesn't have $5.5 billion.
No.
So in order to be able to get a bond to do an appeal, the judge is going to have to agree to lower the amount of damages to an amount that can be paid, that can be bonded. Don't know if that's even possible or not.
Yeah.
Remember, this is the first lawsuit. Right. This is the small one.
This is a little one. So do you think NAR can survive this?
I think they can, and here's why. Anywhere brands, right, and Remax settled early. And it turned out that was a brilliant move, right? And essentially what they settled for was about half of the cash they had on hand.
Okay.
So the plaintiffs don't want to bankrupt the defendants. They don't want to, because they get nothing. What they want to do is make it hard enough that you consider bankruptcy, but you don't actually file it. So there'll be some number, that whether it's 5 billion, 40 billion, whatever these numbers are, it's really irrelevant. Nobody has that money to pay.
No.
But it's going to hurt a lot.
Oh, right? Yeah.
NAR, the brokerages, it's going to hurt a lot. But there is a path to a global settlement. And then we can move forward, right, with the new rules. The new rules being you're going to have a buyer rep agreement, again, which isn't a bad thing. And the only thing that's uncertain in my mind is, will the seller still be allowed to pay a buyer's broker if it's negotiated through the contract?
Right.
Which it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to sit tight. Obviously, if anything drastic happens or a lot of changes happen, I'm going to ask you to come back. But I do have some other questions. So, there's agents in your brokerage. You've been around been around a very long time, right? What's right now, other than this, what's a struggle? What's a common struggle for your agents right now?
I think it's like everywhere in our marketplace in particular, it's inventory. I mean, there
Yeah.
literally just nothing to sell.
Yep.
We had inventory shortages the last few years, but now you add 7.5%, 8% interest rate on homes. If you have a seller who's been in their home for a long time and has a 2.5% or 3% loan, right? Even if they were to sell their home and downsize, their payment goes up. So
Right.
they're saying,
Exactly.
why would I sell right now? Right. Number one, I can't find anything to buy. Number two, it's going to cost me more, payment wise
Yes.
to do that.
Yeah.
So it's the chicken and the egg, something's got to break loose first.
Yeah, I have some close friends in the lending industry, and I coach lenders, and it's interesting, their perspective on all of this. But I am one of those humans you're talking about. I live in Oceanside, Southern California. I refied my home uh, in the middle of COVID, right? So I have a 3%, 2.9% interest rate. And now I'm considering relocating where I have grandkids, Oregon. And I'm like, I'm married to this rate.
I'm
And
at two and
at
a half
some
as
point,
well.
I've got to do
Yeah.
something about it.
No,
Yeah.
I get it. And it's
Yeah.
not, the other part of that is with inventory, our business works on consumer confidence,
Yeah.
right? There's only so many deaths, divorce, and job transfers, right? It doesn't make an industry. People
No.
move when they feel comfortable to move, when they choose to move. And they do that when they think the economy is going to be fine, when they're going to have a job, when things are good in the world, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now.
Oh, yeah. We got to get through elections again.
Elections, Middle East, there's things that are serious to people. And what they're
Yeah.
saying is, you know what? If I don't have to move, maybe it's better if I just stay for 6 months, 8 months, see what happens next year,
Right.
right? You can't
Nope.
fault them for it. It's not a bad
Nope.
decision, but that
Nope.
doesn't do anything for our industry.
No, it doesn't. And I agree across the board. And Susan, I don't know if it is for you, but I've got clients in California, Washington, Texas, all over, New Hampshire, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and everybody says inventory. There is nobody that's saying there's tons of
Right.
inventory in my area. Nobody.
No, I mean, in a normal market, 10 years ago for us, we would have 400 homes for sale. There's 50 in the entire market. It's
Yeah.
just crazy. So it's tough. And I'm sorry, I'm not able to read all the comments either as we go along. I
Yep.
don't know if you can
Well, let me
just.
change the overlay. Can you read them now?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissions have always paid baked in the price.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the concept that the buyer hasn't, well, let me step back.
No.
Of the original 13 or so lawsuits that were filed, about half of them were seller side and half of them were buyer side. The buyer side lawsuits were saying, and those haven't come to fruition yet, but the buyer's side was saying, as a buyer, I'm overpaying for the property because the seller has to pay my buyer's broker, right? And so therefore, if I could negotiate a lower fee with my broker, I wouldn't have to pay as much in the sale price. That's the theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other half of lawsuits were the seller side, which are saying, again, why am I'm netting less for my property because I'm having to pay the other side and they're negotiating against me. Those are the ones that have gotten the most traction to this point. I'm not saying I agree with that theory. I mean, the fact of the matter is it's forever.
Yeah.
Buyers have paid an inflated price so the seller could pay the fee.
Yeah.
It's been there, right? The difference now is they just want it to be transparent.
Correct.
These plaintiffs, I should say, want it to be transparent and they want to be able to negotiate that because
Yep.
if you look at the transcripts of the litigation, the experts hired by the plaintiffs said that if market conditions prevailed, they believe commissions would be 1.5% lower. That's their number, right? And that's how they came up with the billions of dollars is the number of transactions by that.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Interesting. Yep. Well, it's a topic that's really turned a lot of people upside down. And again, I think just listening to my clients or listening to other realtors, the brokers that are front and center and helping, having, like you said, we have classes, I'll do a one-to-one with an agent. Brokers like you that are helping and out front and center, their stability. And again, now the chat's changing for me, so I'm going to look a little distracted for a minute. And unfortunately, there are some agents that don't know what's going on and are not getting the help that they need. But I'm gonna ask you a kind of off-topic question, still on topic on real estate. What do you love about being a broker?
Well, that's a great question. Let me finish up the other one because I think it was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I started with the end, and I want to come back to the end in that.
Yeah.
There are people who are predicting that, I mean, smart people, that by 2026, 80% of the agents in the business today won't be in the business. That's a big number. I
Yep.
don't think that's actually true. I would say it's probably going to be 50%.
Okay.
And the reason is because agents have for so long not had to articulate their value to buyers,
Mm-hmm.
some just won't be able to do it. And
I agree.
I just think it's going to be the case. And even for those that try, some won't be able to get what they've been used to getting. And because of that, if they can't compete on quality or service or expertise or anything like that, they'll have to compete on price, right? And if your value proposition becomes about what you'll charge, you've already lost because someone's always going to do it for less, right? So I think that there'll be a certain percentage of agents who will have to lower their fee to attract business because that's the only way they can. And at some point they'll figure out, I just can't make enough the business to sustain it. I've got to get out.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's going to happen. But having said that, whether it's 50% or 20%, if you're one of those remaining, I think the opportunities are going to be fantastic because you won't have that level of competition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, right. So I'm going to interrupt for a second. So I'm one of the survivors of the, 2008, 2009. I was right head into real estate, supporting my children, and I became the queen of short sales and foreclosures, right? But how many real estate agents left? I survived it. I mean, really, truly, I think back, of all the relationships I built with Wells Fargo lenders. So, I can get short sales passed through.
Well,
But yes, we're going to have a lot of agents survive, and a lot, like you say, there's going to be agents who just, hey, this is not it. I'm going back to my corporate job or whatever.
If you can be one of that 20%, you'll have tremendous opportunity. So that's what I'm coaching my agents is, you know what? Work hard to be that 20%.
Yep, absolutely.
I read somewhere recently that Beyonce practiced 8 months for 1 2-hour show.
Yep.
And I asked my agents yesterday at our office meeting, I said, how many hours a week are you rehearsing, practicing your listing presentation? Your buyer representation presentation, right?
Right.
What else are you doing? If you're not doing that, if you're pretty good right now, you might get 5, 6, 8 opportunities a year to present for a listing. If you're not top of your game, what opportunities you're missing? You don't even know because that's not just that one transaction you lose. We know that one transaction could be repeat referral. It could be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars because you weren't on your game for that one presentation.
Yeah. So yes, and so when I'm working with agents, I'll say, like with Susan, I'll say, like, Susan, right now, you might be sitting at a table doing a listing presentation, and that seller is going to say, why, Susan, do I want to use you versus Chris? Right. So, and there better be a solid answer in there. Right.
You've got an elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, right? You've got about 30 seconds to get someone's attention. And if you can't differentiate yourself in that period of time, you haven't earned the business. Because everybody that knows 10 or 15 or 20 agents, right? And again, why you instead of one of them? Right. And you have to be able to articulate that. And if that doesn't come from in here, it's not going to come from in here.
No, we've got good bullshit indicators.
Absolutely.
We do, right? Yes.
You have to believe it in your soul, number one, that you are the best. And then you have to practice like crazy to be able to produce that.
Right. And then I'm going to throw another piece to the puzzle in this that I believe in is the customer service with the clients you're working with. You need to really exceed at customer service, knock their socks off, because it's easier when it's a referral, right? So if there's, saying you've got to use Chris, you've got to use Susan, call them, right?
Right.
They've already made your
You're already
elevator
over the hump,
speech. You're over the hump, right? So
right?
we want to make sure that our customer service is exceeding anybody else's.
It's interesting you asked me about why I like being a broker. I think what we do when it's done well has tremendous value.
Yep.
The caveat is when we do it well, right?
Yes.
And in
Yeah.
my opinion, a lot of agents don't do it well, and
Yeah.
that tarnishes a reputation. But when we do it, and so when you can finish a transaction and the review that they leave says, I always wondered why agents make as much as they do, but after having done a transaction with you, I'd have paid you double if I had to.
Yeah. No, I just had a client who just did that. So she's one of she's in the Redondo Beach area where one of her buyers, did the buyer's rep agreement. Home was at zero. And so she was explaining to her buyer, and because she's done multiple transactions with my client, absolutely no problem paying you. You're worth every penny that I understand there's change. I've been following in the news, and no way am I going to buy a house without you. And it made her cry.
And that's where you want to be, right? When you can get to that, it's funny. There's a lot of changes over the 43 years in the industry, but one that always seems to be the same is an agent will come in and say, "Hey, I want to get my real estate license. I want to come work for you." And I say, "Why?" Well, because I like homes.
I like looking at homes. Yeah.
There's the door, right? That's not the right answer, right? If it's because I love helping people and I want to watch them succeed and financially be secure, all those things, now we can talk.
Yeah.
But if you think that the image is like HGTV, where you're going to drive around in a nice car, go to lunches all day and make a ton of money and not have to work hard,
Yeah.
that's not it.
Nope, that's not it. And it's not that easy. I saw a post on Facebook not too long ago where somebody said, "Yay, I got my real estate license. I love looking at homes, and this is what I'm meant to be." And I just went, "Oh, I wonder a year from now she's going to be not there."
I would spend the first 30 to 45 minutes of an interview telling them all the reasons they shouldn't be in the business.
Right.
Truly, because they never heard that before. And if they're still sitting there after that time, I say, "Now here's why you should."
Yeah.
Right. But someone's got to tell you the truth. This is the business. And if you're going to come into it, you need to come in with your eyes open.
Absolutely. You certainly do. And Susan, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. You're a phenomenal human, and a cat lover. Anything else you want to bring up? Because I know we've exceeded the half an hour, and we probably could go on for another half an hour. So is there's anything that's speaking to you, Chris, that you want to do a shout out for yourself? Let's, anything, what's your superpower? Okay. All fair in love and war. What's your superpower as a broker?
I look at my business as a consultant. I'm here to help, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's my agents. For 25 years, I didn't sell. I was a selling agent a long time. Then I bought the company, and for 25 years, I didn't sell. The idea was I wasn't going to compete with my agents, right? That was my philosophy.
Got it.
And then when March of 2020 happened, and our governor told us what we do is not essential, go home, right? I remember walking out the door, locking the door, turning the lights off, and going home and saying, "I don't know that I'll ever open the doors again. We may not be able to," right?
Right.
So I made the decision to change and go back to selling. And it's done a couple of things for me. One, it's made me appreciate how much I enjoy the business, working with clients instead of just monitoring transactions.
Yep.
And it's also made me a better broker, because instead of saying 25 years ago, this is what I used to do, I can say, this is what I'm in the field today. I'm in the trenches with you. And when I get 40 or 50 written offers on my listing, here's how I do it logistically, right? I see the same things you are.
Right.
So I said, in the business that I'm doing today, I'm not competing, because it's my relationships that you wouldn't have anyway. I'm just bringing inventory to the company and trying to make this thing go.
Right. Exactly. But
it made me appreciate again what it is that we do, because handing the keys to that buyer or handing the check to that seller when they go and they say, wow, you made it so easy for me. I mean, I loved this transaction. It's like I used to coach kids in sports. You
Yeah.
can teach them and teach them. And the one day in the game when they do what they're supposed to do and they look over and that light bulb goes off, that aha moment, right?
Mhm.
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about. That's why I coach. When that light bulb
Exactly.
moment goes off, I had a client yesterday. I allow my clients to have SOS calls, and so
Yeah.
I got an SOS call. Says I got a listing presentation tonight, and I'm nervous, and I need an SOS call. So I did a call. I called as soon as I was off. My other coach calls. I called her back, and we talked it through, and found her superpowers again, and made sure that there was, not the negative voices, I'm too young, I haven't been in it because she's newer. A couple hours later, I get a text that she landed it. That was
That's
it.
awesome.
And that's it. And I'm like, that's what I do. I didn't do it. She did it. However, accessing those superpowers and helping with confidence and having somebody then come back and say, I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm sure you have sellers who say that, but you probably also have agents who say, thanks, Chris, I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
rewarding. And
Yeah.
part of that goes back, and I know we're running out of time, but it's
Yeah.
an interesting story. So I got my license when I was 20. And I walked into the real estate company. It was in Palos Verdes. It was a small little company. It was managing or a selling broker and 4 agents.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, this is great. I got my license. And they said, okay, great. There's your desk. There's your phone. Go to work. I said, what do I do? And he said, I'm too busy. I'm selling. I can't train you. You got to figure this
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That was the end of my training. So I picked up the phone. I called my dad and I said, do you know if your friends that think about buying or selling? He said, well, yeah, actually I do. I've got a friend who wants to buy a house, a foreclosure for his son. Give him a call. I
Yeah.
pick up the phone. I call him. He says, perfect timing, right? I found this house in this neighborhood. I want to buy it. It's a bank owned. Bring the forms up to my house. We'll write the offer. And I'm 20 years old. I'd never bought or sold a house at that time. I said, okay, I don't even know what forms to bring. He said, grab everything in the drawer and come up. We'll figure it out.
That is so cool.
This was back when it was it was really a 2-page, 1-page fill in and 1 page of blanks, right?
Yeah.
So I go up to his house, we sit down, and it's ready to write the offer. And he says, okay, we want to offer this price, all cash, 7 days. I said, can we even do 7 days? They don't teach you that in licensing school, right?
See, well, at least you were smart enough to ask that question versus, sure, no problem.
Yeah. He said, absolutely. Everybody else who makes an offer will be 30 or 45 days. The bank will love ours because we'll get it done. It's a cash deal. I said, okay.
Yep.
So he said, write the offer. And I said, I don't know how. My client literally takes the offer, fills out the offer for me as I'm sitting there watching him do that. He says, can you at least take it to the bank and hand it to them?
You got so lucky.
And I can do that much. Drove it to the bank, dropped it off. He says, we'll call you tomorrow. So I'm sitting at my desk the next morning. Bank calls and says, congratulations, you got your offer accepted.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, what a business.
Yeah.
This is the second day in. I'm going to get a check in 7 days for like $9,000. So I start doing what agents do, right? Well, if I can do one of these a week, that's for a month. And I'm doing the math in my head. I mean, thinking about how much money I'm going to make.
Yep.
I'm daydreaming about what I'm going to buy, whatever. One of the other agents comes over and says, well, how's your escrow going? I said, I don't know. I guess it's going okay. She said, did you open escrow?
Oh, no.
I said, am I supposed to do that? Remember, my training was there's your desk, there's your phone, go to work. Right?
Wow. That's sad. That's really sad. I'm not laughing anymore.
Oh, fortunately, she grabs me by the arm, and this is before faxes, cell phones, anything. We run around and we get it closed in 7 days. And I remember thinking 2 things when it closed. Number 1, this business has potential.
Yeah.
But number 2, if I'm ever in a position to own or manage a company, I will never put my agents through that. I will never make them feel that unprepared, that stupid, right? So my passion from that day forward has been to learn everything I can about everything in the business.
Yeah.
I read, I study, I talk, whatever, so that I never have to be that unprepared.
Yeah.
And I want my agents to be the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was laughing at your story in the beginning, but the middle piece broke my heart, right? It could have gone so south.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't see to that extent necessarily, but I think the industry's kind of gone that way a lot with the way things are going, that the training isn't nearly what it used to be.
It isn't for some brokers, because I coach some brokers and they're phenomenal with their training. I'm so proud of them. However, I true story, and obviously with confidentiality, I can't share who, but I actually started coaching a brand new young gal who that didn't even know what NAR was.
Yeah.
I mean, she's with an online brokerage. And
Yeah.
there is zero training. And I'm like, yeah, this is not the place for you. Maybe if you've been in the business 30 years, great. But
Right.
as a brand new agent, there's no training. You don't know the basics. There's nobody there. I'm a coach. I can mentor you because
Right.
I've been a realtor for so long. But she's lucky for that, because I had coached non-realtors. I coach a roofer. I coach an attorney. I coach an insurance salesperson. I can't mentor them. I can't tell my client how to build a roof. I can coach them, right?
Right.
And, so yeah, so the training piece is, I think the most important piece for your brokerage or for your industry as a
For the
broker.
industry. And what you do,
Yes.
we appreciate that, because a lot
Yeah.
of the agents who don't get that from their broker need people like
Yeah.
you to be able to help them, to guide them,
Yeah.
to coach them, to nurture them,
Yeah.
and to motivate them.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've all had had minor horror stories. When I was licensed in Florida, and I'm aging myself, how long ago it was when I was licensed in Florida. My very first deal, I forgot. And in Florida, we order surveys. We don't do that in California, but in Florida, we have to order a survey. And I forgot, as the buyer's agent, that I have to order the survey. So I put my clients up in a hotel for a week because I forgot to do something.
Yeah.
It closed and I got the survey ordered, but
Yeah.
we have horror stories like that, but that's a minor one. Yours is a little bit more drastic.
Well, it ended well, at least. At
Yes,
least it
it
ended
did.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And again, anytime you want to hop on, or if there's something major going on in NAR that you want to share, I'd love you to come back.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the
And
opportunity.
I'm glad that Lenore connected us.
Yes, I am as well. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming on. And if you have
The
any
next
further
time I'll fix
questions,
the lighting. I'll make sure the lighting, the
the
camera's
lighting's
working.
better.
It's supposed to next time.
Yeah. But Chris, when you come back on, like if you go to Facebook or LinkedIn, please put your contact information in
Sure.
there. So if anybody comes back and listens, they can see, and they want to talk to you or have questions, put that in there. Neither of us have the power to put that in the comments.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
All right, good. Let me see where I'm at with everything here. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.